This episode is sponsored by Peloton. By now, you guys probably know that Peloton is a huge part of my fitness routine. We've had a bike for about 2 years now, and it's allowed me to carve out fitness into my life in a way that I never had before. I think I've done at least 500 classes in the last 2 years. It doesn't feel right if I've finished my day and not spent some time with Ben Aldis or Emma Lovewell or any of the other instructors that really do feel like a part of my life at this point. I never had an easy time having fitness be a regular part of my day, my routine, who I was, until I got involved in Peloton. I highly encourage you guys to check it out for yourself. Try Peloton risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only, not available in remote locations. See additional terms at www.onepeloton.com/home trial. This episode is brought to you by Zelle. I always use Zelle when I'm sending money back and forth. We actually just used it this week to send a payment to our wedding planner. It's incredibly convenient and easy. When anyone sends you money or if you need to get paid back, always ask for Zelle. With Zelle, the money goes straight into your bank account, and it works even if the sender banks somewhere else different than you in the US. Look for Zelle in your banking app today. The show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Unfortunately, life doesn't come with a user manual, so every once in a while, we need a little bit of help. Therapy has been a huge part of that for me. I'm a huge proponent of weekly therapy. I've been going for a couple years now. It's a great way to check in with myself, work on my goals, how I'm feeling, get some new perspective. I highly encourage people to check it out. And as the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists available 100% online. Plus, it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/maze. That's betterhelp.com/MAYS.
This is the Athletic Football Show.
Welcome to the Athletic Football Show. I'm Robert Mays. Joining me today, my good friend Nate Tice. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well. We have a new addition to our family and apparently new intro music for our podcast for the YouTube show. That was pretty. We got some beats happening every single week. I'm pleasantly surprised, but no, I'm doing.
It was so funny
well.
because last week when the first song kicked in, I was like, I kind of missed the beats, and then the second one kicked in, I was like, everyone has redeemed themselves. We're all good. I'm very into this now. Hey,
it was great.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm so happy for you and Lauren. I'm so happy for your family. I am very excited to meet little Jack at some point. I'm a podcast uncle. He is a member of the Athletic Football Show family. The Athletic Football Show family is much bigger now. And I'm very excited for you, but I'm also excited to have you back.
Oh, thank you, man. We are very excited. I really appreciate that. I honestly, and everyone that reached out on Twitter or elsewhere, really appreciate you, all the love you guys sent. Overwhelmed is really the word. Like people say that, like, oh, overwhelmed by the support and everything. I actually was. So I really appreciate everybody, and especially you, my man. I'm very excited to be back, though. Watching film while feeding my newborn son last night was something I'm gonna have to get used to. So that's something we're all evolving with the season and the new times.
We got a lot to dig into today. We're going to talk about Mac Jones and Zach Wilson playing against each other this week with the Jets and the Patriots. Dig into Washington a little bit. We haven't really talked about the Washington football team at all, but they strung together a couple wins. Went back and watched the Eagles game. Thought there was a lot to chew on there. We're going to discuss what might be going on with the Eagles and the Bills. You know, two teams that were supposed to win their respective conferences kind of cruise. They've hit a little bit of a speed bump. I think there's a lot to analyze and dig into there. But let's start with what I think is the game of the week, and that is the Vikings playing against the Cowboys. Vikings coming off a huge win against Buffalo last week. Cowboys, little bit of a letdown against the Packers team that has left us wanting so far this season. This is a monstrous game in the NFC and in the NFC playoff race. The Vikings, if they win games like this, and they can beat some teams where, I mean, they're not favored this week. The Cowboys are favored to win this game. They can win some games they're technically not supposed to win. The number one seed is there. Like the Eagles' schedule is incredibly easy, but the Vikings aren't exactly playing a bunch of world beaters down the stretch. So we'll see what happens with that. I think this is an important game for Dallas, just again, to get a better sense of what they are offensively. We talked about this heading into last week when you were doing fatherly duties. The Cowboys really hadn't played a decent defense with Dak back until they had to play against the Packers last week. And it was sort of an up and down performance. So a lot of big picture implications in this game. Let's start, though, with your impressions from last week. I haven't talked to you about the Vikings since they beat the Bills and how it might change your perception of what you think about Minnesota. So when you watch that game, rewatch that game this week, what jumped out to you about the way that the Vikings played? Let's say on defense first.
On defense, yeah, I really like with the defense is that they're so intelligent and just so well coached. The first thing I was focusing more on the Bills when I watched that game and was previewing it and scouting it, or all 22 viewing it as I'm feeding with, feeding my son and with one hand and I'm fast forwarding and rewinding. But I watched it and just how they communicate, especially on the back end. And I also just like how the defensive, based on the down and distance, they have a real identity and a game plan each week. I shouldn't say identity. I should just say they're very well scouted and well coached in the sense of first and second down, we're going to do
Details.
this. Yes, details. Third down, they change up their looks, just little tweaks each week. We talk about offenses doing this a lot, and I'll talk about some other offenses on the show, but their defense is a good indicator or a good version of this. Like as far as we were going against this team, let's put Zadarius Smith over this guy on a third down pass rush. We talk about Micah Parsons doing this, but Zadarius Smith as well. And he's been dominant in that spinner role, which is a term I haven't used in a while, but Zadarius Smith is the premier spinner. And that is when a guy is standing up, lining up, a usual edge rusher is lined up on the inside, standing up, and they really are just picking the weak link on the offensive line. I just think that the Vikings understand every coverage. They have those vets on the back end. Patrick Peterson on the first couple drives against the Bills was so cool to watch, a corner communicating so well with other DBs. Him and Harrison Smith are just kind of going, yep, got it. It's really cool watching DB play and offensive line play have these kind of similarities. Offensive line, especially veteran, like a right guard and a right tackle, won't even communicate. They'll just go, yep, got it. Like if a defense shifts, this is the defensive version of that. You see a DB in a corner kind of go, thumbs up, we got it. Motion, yep, we got it, push. I thought that it's really cool to watch this team do that because they're really not going to beat themselves. Sometimes they might have some matchup issues, but they're not going to get put in bad positions. It's enjoyable to watch, more enjoyable than I thought maybe going in. And they had a couple of sneaky standout guys that I know we want to anoint as athletic football show all-stars before the show's over.
The Vikings defense is in a pretty interesting spot. They've been middle of the road for most of the season, and they've had the benefit of mostly being healthy. Cam Dantzler is really the only guy on the back end that they've lost, and I think that continuity has helped them with the two safeties playing a lot. Patrick Peterson being healthy, you can tell that communication and them being on the same page is a huge part of why they've been able to have some success this year. And the details stick out to me because you watch them play zone coverage and guys being at different depths in, like, when you watch them play quarters, like they know exactly like what depths to be at on the back end. We're like,
Right.
It's hard to tell which coverage they're playing because like based on the structure of the offense, they're cheating just a little bit to put themselves in the right spots.
Because they go
It's
that
why the
kind
Bills,
of no man's land, like kind of like that 10, 12-year area because they know the
they are
drive
never
on stuff.
guarding grass.
Yeah.
And that's when you see teams that are really good zone defensive teams. They're never guarding grass, and they don't have elite athletes, right? Like Jordan Hicks is on this team, Harrison Smith is on this team, Patrick Peterson's on this team. This isn't 2013. Like
No.
they don't have that many guys that are like these eye-popping players, especially in the back seven, but they're just very smart and they play together very well, and they consistently give teams a hard time because of it.
Right.
And then you have guys like you just mentioned. I did not expect to rewatch that Bills game and just enjoy the hell out of watching James Lynch, number 92 for the Vikings. I mean, these are these moments when you go back and watch some of these games and it's like, holy shit, who's that guy?
Yep.
I mean, he made multiple really nice plays against the run. And the Vikings are a team. Dalvin Tomlinson's not playing, which is one of the reasons he's getting more snaps.
Yep.
But the Vikings play with the lightest boxes in the league. So you need those front four guys to really take up a lot of gaps and take up a lot of bodies up front. And he was doing that for them. And it's just so fun to see guys like that step up to the moment, have their little flourishes when they get their chance. And that's what this Vikings team has been this year. It's just guys doing little things pretty well. And I think that's allowed them to excel, even if they don't have any really elite players outside of the guys that they have up front.
Yeah, and it's cool how this is guys taking advantage of the matchups they're given because, again, I think this Vikings coaching staff on the defensive side really puts these guys in good spots, because you'll see a lot of slanting of these guys or guys exchanging gaps, whether linebackers or defensive linemen, based on, you can tell, formation looks. He had a great play. Lynch had a great tackle, or really, he didn't make the tackle, but he disrupted into the backfield. He slanted all the way over to the B gap and pushed the guard into the backfield and allowed someone else to make a TFL on a run play against the.
Yes.
And it was
like a 3-yard loss. It was a huge play.
And it was just, he took advantage of what they were doing. They're causing disruption, but he has to take advantage of that. And he was able to do so. He's only 23 and he's in his third year, which is pretty remarkable for a
didn't get a lot of running. I think he played like 300 total snaps last year. And that's why it's cool to see when a new staff comes in, some of these guys, when they get an opportunity, are they playing a little bit better? I mean, Ed Donatell is considered like one of the best defensive backs coaches in the entire NFL. When you think about what he's done at all these different stops, and now he's getting his chance as a coordinator. And I think this team is really well coached. You know who they remind me of a little bit? The Bengals.
Yeah.
Where they don't have many elite
DBs.
Players, especially, but really smart veteran DBs. And then your real difference maker is up front with Z and Danielle Hunter. And those are the guys that can really change the game. And that's kind of how Trey Hendrickson felt last year. They don't do as much crazy shit on the back end. Like, it's very by the book Fangio stuff. Like, we're running quarters, we're running six, we're doing this. It's all
we're
like
running this, and we're going to read it out perfectly. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. Yes.
But the baseline reasons that they can excel as a defense, I think, are very similar. And if you look at what the 2021 Bengals were, they were like 17th in defensive DVOA. Like, you don't have to be a dominant ass kicking unit every single week to still be a group that can contain an offense for 3 games in the playoffs, or you have a couple moments where it's like, all right, we can put a game plan together for one single week. So I was really encouraged watching them. How are you feeling about Dallas right now?
I'm feeling actually pretty optimistic about them. I just tweeted this. Yeah. I'm such a sucker for this offense, and I will be forever.
I know you are.
I can't get away from it. And I'm just, it's not perfect. The offense is not perfect. Like, there are the first interception that Dak threw into the end zone, 2 guys are running the same route. And, that
happened a couple times in that game.
It did. And also the other pick, it was the second to last drive in the first half. They ran a 989 concept. CD Lamb is reading the route. That 8 route is either a dig or a post. The Packers ran a nice little funky change up. They ran a 3 deep cover 2. And CD, you could tell, he hesitates just slightly. He ends up reading it right. He goes, oh, this is Tampa 2, but just with the safety in the middle. So he ends up going deep. Dak sees it and goes, oh, single high. There's a safety right in front of me. And so he tries to rip a dig. And they're trying to play fast. And that's what happens when you read routes. That's why I've never been a huge fan of route reading. 989 is an exception because it's a great play. It's a perfect play. It's so simple and perfect. But that's where the downside of that is. Having said that, this offense is fun, man. Like, I'm just a sucker for it. I really am. They're throwing we wanted to see more of those easy buttons with Dak back, and they're hitting them. I saw some RPOs in this game. They ran a power play with double slants. They hit CD on. They had a smoke throw to Michael Gallup. They're running Dak more. I know they had a couple QB sneaks in this game, but the fact they're using Dak on QB sneaks was something they weren't doing last year. They kind of got away from it because he was injured. And I understand why. He had 9 designed rushes, Dak did, in all of 2021. He has 8 already in 4 games in 2022. So that's another easy button they can hit, especially in short yardage. They have fun wrinkles every single game. Against the Bears, they did the 0-3 personnel with 3 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, CD Lamb in the backfield. That seems gimmicky, but also I've thought about it more and more. I wrote about it in my Rewind article. That was when Zeke got hurt, and they were going to give Pollard a bunch of touches, and they did that game. That was a way to get Pollard a break. So they had no running backs on the field. Pollard just took a break for the entire drive, so he was able to catch his breath. And I was like, that's a fun, creative way to do that. They went tempo. I think they're doing a great job of using tempo. They caught the Packers a couple times, including, if you watch it all 22, you can see Matt LaFleur about 10 yards onto the field yelling out to the ref as the ball play is going, which was hilarious. Like, just stuff like that. They had the gadget plays in the red zone. Like, the run game's really good. I love what they're doing in the run game, and they're having guys step up. That when we were talking in August, we were previewing some of these playoff teams and offenses. We kind of like, oh man, I was optimistic, and then as we talked, I kind of became more pessimistic about the Cowboys.
I was just pessimistic.
Yeah, and I kind of like met you in the middle. And Tyler Smith is a bona fide starting left tackle in this league, and I think is going to be a very, very good one. He already looks above average to good as a rookie left tackle, which
especially in the run game.
Oh my God. And he's so athletic and he's strong. His hands have gotten so much better at staying inside. He finishes. He's smart. I could tell he understands what's going on. I think they're very well coached. They also Jake Ferguson, go Badgers. That's letting them go into 12 personnel, which I really like. That is always the best version of this Cowboys offense, is when they can sprinkle in that 12 personnel, because their run game's so good out of it and the play action game's so good out of it. I'm really liking
last year when they were the splits last year before and after some of their tight end injuries, when they were running the ball in a 12 personnel, where it was night and day. And so
it was the week after we brought it up too.
Yes,
like, man, their 12 personnel is so good, and then Blake Jarwin gets hurt.
Mentioning their run game, looking back at what the Vikings were last week, and then what they're going to have to play against this week with Dallas. The one area where the Bills really got after them on the ground was with perimeter runs. They gashed the Vikings defense last week on perimeter runs. And even if they're competent at stopping the run out of these light boxes, I guarantee you the Cowboys are sitting there saying, all right, we are going to try to run the ball down your throat if you're going to play like this. We're going to force you to stop the run out of those light boxes with us in those 12 personnel looks, or even running it out of 11. So that, to me, if I'm talking about where the Cowboys need to succeed and what the Vikings have to be most worried about, it's the Cowboys trying to grind them down when they're in those light box looks.
Yep. It's a pound and shot game, like something like that, which plays right into the Cowboys' hands. And also, just the other thing too is that Michael Gallup is just, even him being out there really helps out this offense. Just having that guy on the outside. They have Noah Brown's a nice role player for them because he's so big and can block. And then they have their gadget guy in Turpin. And so I just like the makeup. They're also the best running back draw team in the game. Like, it's their draw play, which is, it helps kind of keep offense or defenses from teeing off on them, which I know this Vikings defense would want to do, especially with Zadarius Smith. So they had some really good ones against the Packers that were really nice. They block it in a unique way, which I really like as well. But also the last thing I want to bring up is that I'm bringing up Zadarius Smith one more time, is Connor McGovern better, eat his Wheaties, because I guarantee you that's where the Vikings are going to tee off on. That's the weakness of the
fact
line.
That they can make that decision every week. It's like, all right, where are we going with it? I think it's so valuable that they can do that. And he's playing well, and Hunter's really starting to come on. Both the pass rusher, he had a couple moments last week in coverage that were difference-making moments. He wasn't supposed to be in coverage on it was a screenplay that he just recognized. They tried to run a screen to Dawson Knox down in the red zone. He recognized it immediately and blows it up. Then there was another play where they ran a simulated pressure where at first I was like, did he just read this, or is he actually supposed to be in the flat? And they brought Harrison Smith off the edge, and he bounced to the flat in coverage, and he had a TFL and a swing pass for a 3-yard loss. So his just ability to play in space in those moments. It's fun to watch him making an impact on the game again. And then when you combine that with the way that Zadarius Smith is playing, Harrison Phillips has had some nice moments for them. And again, we're talking about like guys like James Lynch. It's not a group of stars defensively outside of those couple edge rushers, but they're playing really well together. And again, I think it's another good test for a Dallas offense where we like what they're rolling out there right now.
And also shout out to Eric Kendricks. Eric Kendricks is another very, very smart player. And, he's gotten banged. He's a smaller guy who's gotten banged up over the years, but he's still, I wouldn't say an impact player, but a good player for them. And he affects the game as well. So they just have intelligence in the back end, in the middle, and then also up front. They just have some guys that, do their jobs. They do their jobs well. And that's what this defense is all about.
So talk about the Vikings being able to run the ball, or Vikings being able to stop Dallas running the ball. On the opposite side, that's exactly what we should be talking about and thinking about, right? So the Cowboys right now, the numbers here are pretty fascinating. The Cowboys right now are 9th in run defense success rate this season.
Okay.
And based on all the consternation about their ability to stop the run, you think it'd be worse than that. But there's some other underlying numbers that are pretty important. They're 27th in the percentage of their snaps that they're in light boxes. So one of the reasons that they're stopping the run is that they're devoting a ton of bodies to stopping the run. So with 7 or 8 guys in the box, the Cowboys are 8th in the league in success rate against the run. With 5 or 6, they're 18th.
There it is.
And so that's, if you're going to have to devote some extra resources to stopping the run, what happens? So right now, with 6 or 7 in the box, the Cowboys are 3rd in the NFL in EPA per dropback. With an 8th guy in the box, they're 26th. So what do you do?
The Vikings have this guy named Justin Jefferson.
So if you have to continue to devote extra bodies to stopping the run, which they did against the Packers,
Yep.
what is that going to do to you in coverage? Anthony Brown gets a concussion last week. They're down to their second nickel corner. And then the other part of this, what is happening with Micah Parsons? Micah Parsons played 9 snaps. He had 9 pass rush snaps last week. And he had 10 snaps as a defensive lineman last week with Anthony Barr out. And that version of the Cowboys defense, when they can't stop the run without extra bodies, when they're down to Kelvin Joseph and Deron Bland as their other 2 corners, and Micah Parsons is having to play off the ball, that version of the Cowboys defense doesn't scare me.
Right. That's my first thought too. I'm glad you brought this up, because talking about Zadarius Smith lining up an interior lineman, I was thinking too, it was like, oof, Ed Ingram better hold on his hat, because Micah Parsons will be teeing off on him. But now he doesn't have to worry about it as much. I'm sure there'll be a couple of them, but now it's not a true, like, we're doing this every passing down snap. Now it's once in a while. And that plays into the Vikings' hands. I will say the other thing too is this Vikings run game is more horizontal, more, that's what it is. The outside zone stuff, the split zone stuff. And this Cowboys defense, they're a little light in the pants, but they're built on speed. So
they have the only team in the NFL that has played fewer snaps of base personnel than the Dallas Cowboys this season is the Buffalo Bills. So being light in the pants, it's exactly what we're talking about. It's 5 DBs to everything. They play 5 DBs to 21. They play 5 DBs to 12. It's different looks. Sometimes it's 3 safeties, whatever it is, but they don't have enough linebackers to play with base personnel. So that's why I'm wondering,
one injury.
Minnesota didn't do this last week because they're playing again against a team that plays nickel to everything. Do you maybe do a little more heavier personnel and try to grind them down if you know they're going to play nickel? But they didn't do that against the Bills. But the Bills are good at defending the run out of nickel. The Cowboys are not good at defending the run out of these light personnel groups. So that little push and pull is something to watch. Other thing is,
that's what it is. It's
and how do you try to take advantage of those? And the one other thing I wanted to mention before we moved on, the Cowboys are a little bit different than the Bills in the sense that you're going to have a lot of cover 2 and cover 3 situationally. They pretty much trade off. It's man or cover 2 or cover 3 on third down, and it's almost equal cover 2 and cover 3. What sort of tells are you going to get formationally? When do you know that you can take some of these shots to Justin Jefferson? When do you know that you can push the ball down the field? Because one of the 2 things that I'm most excited about with the Vikings passing game, one, Hawkinson's a difference maker for them.
Yes.
When it's 3rd and 8, having one more guy that can get open is immensely valuable.
Yes.
And he has done that. And then their willingness to push the ball down the field. They were taking no chances in the first half of the season. And even taking 4 or 5 a game where it's like, you know what? He's the best receiver in the league. Fuck it. That needs to continue happening. What are those going to look like? Because if they're in a look that looks like man or cover 3 and they're suddenly in cover 2 and you're taking those shots, it looks a little uglier than when you know you're going to get single high, you know you're going to get one-on-ones. So how can you gain that information is something that I'm curious about.
And Hawkinson, man, it's just, he's perfect for what they have such a nice complementary pieces. I mean, Jefferson will complement anyone, but Thielen is he can do some nice things all over the field. KJ Osborne has kind of been up and down this season. I have felt, I was optimistic about him, but he does some nice things as well. He had a nice wheel route into the red zone, but Hawkinson, it's a perfect complementary piece because he also gives them that size element, that catching range element that most tight ends get. We talk about safety blankets. The tight end is the safety blanket. He's a souped up safety blanket because it's more, he's an intermediate guy, which is another guy that they can put over the intermediate areas of the field and let Jefferson, probably one of, if not, him, Tyreek, but one of the best receivers in the game, one of the best weapons in the game, can go deep now. He doesn't have to just be the overrunner. He could do everything possible. I'm glad you're talking about the shot stuff too, because I was double checking the Alex stat, which is the third down stat that Football Outsiders does, which is basically how short of the sticks that the quarterback throws. On third down. I'm sorry. In week 8, Kirk Cousins ranked 31st in this stat, how short of the sticks he was throwing. He's now ranked 17th. So there is actual statistical evidence that he is shooting down the field. And also, yes. And that first third down of the game against the Bills, they're also opening script maestros, this Vikings offense. But that first third down, he has Hawkinson on a crosser and then he has Jefferson on the over or the dig or whatever it was, inbreaker of some sort. And Kirk Cousins of yesteryear, of earlier this year, would just hit the crosser and it might get the first down, barely get it. He hangs in the pocket and goes, nope, I'm hitting Jefferson on this. It was a dig, because now I remember it. He hits Jefferson on the dig. Boom. Jefferson runs out of it. It was already like an 18-yard gain. Jefferson runs out of it. It's like a super long game, 40 yards, I think it was. So that's the difference, is Kirk Cousins is doing that more. He is attacking down the field, especially on these passing down situations. That's good.
It changed the ceiling of the offense.
Yes.
And if we're trying to figure out why we might have been a little bit down on the Vikings over the first half of the season and why we might be more encouraged now, that ceiling changing on offense, because he's going to be more aggressive, is a huge part of that.
Yes.
Kirk Cousins, it's been such a transition for him, and he's been honest about that, open about that. It's a lot. The offense is dense. There's a lot that he's had to get used to. For the last few years in Minnesota, they lined up in heavy personnel a lot, almost as much as any other team in the NFL. It was 21-12. We're running play action downhill under center.
Yep.
And a lot of how teams played against them, because they lined up like that, is we're going to be heavy and we're going to play a lot of single high safety because we need to worry about stopping the run, because that's how you're built. Well, what does that do for the quarterback? It simplifies his decision making.
Yes.
I know what I'm getting on the back end. Yep. I know I'm running these cover 3 beaters, and I'm going to grip it and rip it.
Yep.
And over
sales and overs, baby.
and honestly, and he looks beautiful doing that stuff. Yes. When he knows where he's going with it, oh boy, it looks pretty. But now it's all mostly 11. Teams are running a bigger variety of coverages against them. And now he was thinking a lot more. He was not willing to kind of grip it and rip it the same way he was when the defensive end of things was more simple over the last couple seasons. Well, now we're in the second half of the year with this offense. And whether it's him being more confident in what he's seeing, or him understanding that lack of ambition was hamstringing them, last week was a sign that he's willing to be a little bit more, fuck it. And I think that is a very good thing for their offense. It's going to lead to some mistakes, right? They're not going to take care of the ball as much, but I would almost rather have there be more volatility with their offense, because he's willing to be a little bit more aggressive.
We know they can be efficient, be explosive, and this is a way to be explosive, and they're showing it. There's proof in this type of pudding.
All right, next game here: Chiefs against the Chargers. This game has lost some luster compared to the week 2 version, or obviously what was going to happen before the season when we thought that the Chargers might be a playoff team. They might push the Chiefs in the AFC West. I will say there's still plenty of stuff to watch. And what piques my interest the most is that Brandon Staley, even if the Chargers defense has been a little bit underwhelming this year, can still unleash a weird as hell game plan, depending on who he's playing against, that gives another offense, even if it's a more talented offense, trouble. That happened last week against San Francisco.
Yeah.
You go back and you watch that game, and he said this week he thought it was the best game he ever called, which that's a whole different conversation.
Dude, after a win.
It's a whole different conversation. So when some of the stuff they were doing against the Niners, 4-man fronts with 2 inside shade 1 techniques, 4-man even fronts with 3 safety looks with Derwin in there. Sebastian Joseph Day playing on the edge every once in a while. By the way, so Christian Covington's out for the year, and Christian Covington is just like a nice rotational piece for them. That's all he is. I was on the phone with my mom yesterday, and she was like, Christian Covington's out for the year? And I was like, yeah, why do you know that? And the Xfinity news thing on the TV just like put it in the corner of the television. Why does Xfinity think my mom needs to know that a Chargers backup defensive lineman is out for the year?
They know that you host the show. That's like they're just helping you out. It's another avenue of information.
All the things I expected her to say in that conversation. Christian Covington is out for the year is not something I expected her to say.
That is
anyway.
Funny.
That's what the Chargers can do every once in a while. They can unleash this kind of weird game plan against you. And we have seen a lot of weird, differentiated game plans against the Chiefs over the last couple of years. Last season, the Chargers played man coverage against the Chiefs 55% of the time on Mahomes' dropbacks. That would lead the league over the course of an entire season. Mahomes was one that faced the least amount of man coverage, or bottom 3 last season, because Tyreek Hill was still there. So what the Chargers are doing is, he doesn't see a lot of this. We're going to unleash this very weird game plan they don't expect. Week 2, What do you not do against Patrick Mahomes? Don't blitz.
Don't blitz him.
If you blitz, you're screwed.
Yeah.
The Chargers blitz on 44% of his third down dropbacks in week 2. And some of the pressure stuff that they were doing was the best stuff they did in that game.
Yes.
And is some of the best stuff they've done this season.
Yeah.
So what do we do now? We've already thrown these couple change-ups at him in 2 games last year when Staley got there, and then in 1 game this year. What is the change-up to the change-up? That is my favorite part of this game, the element of this game that I'm most intrigued by.
My theory, I like the 3 safety looks. I think that is their best personnel grouping.
It was always going to be, and that's why it was so disappointing that JT Woods was not playing for the first half of the year.
Always, like, get Derwin James, unlock Derwin James. Like, he's your difference maker on that defense. I mean, Khalil as well. But I think the change-up to the change-up is drop 8. And they ran it 10% of the time against the 49ers, which is season high. And they didn't do it once against the Chiefs the first time they played. And then they had some exotic looks. I just tweeted one against the 49ers. There's a third down. They showed a heavy blitz look, dropped 8, and Drew Tranquill is running down the post in the cover 3 look, like a 3 buzz look. And
I'm not sure I like that.
Hey, throw some stuff against the wall, see what sticks.
At this point, you might as well.
Against Mahomes, that's kind of what you have to do. I mean, that's what
yes, it is.
That's what the Bills did. That's what the Bills defense
did. The Bills, the Bengals, yes.
They went off their own tendencies. They're like, hey, let's run a little bit of everything, variety packet.
Yeah.
And hopefully one of them sticks. So I think there's going to be a little bit of drop 8. The fact that they did it 10% of the time last week was like, oh, wow, I didn't know you guys did that. And so, okay, maybe they lean into that. I think that might be the changeup. As far as, do you want me to, like, my one Chiefs, like, little tidbit here? I do. I'm curious if the Chiefs lean into, you never have to tell Andy Reid, don't run the ball. Like, he's more than happy to pass the ball always.
That's why this is such an interesting matchup. And I think why the Chargers have given them relative problems over the last year or so. Not really. Like, he's still been very good against them, but not as good as he is against the rest of the league.
It's like 80% of Mahomes as opposed to the real
anything you
fireworks.
can do to take it down that 20%, you do.
It's one firework going off as opposed to like 20 going off on top of you. But I'm curious if the Chiefs lean into these counter runs. The 49ers are really getting after them. That's the fronts that the Chargers run. The Chiefs have leaned more into that. But also, do they utilize, and this is like the 40th time I've mentioned this, do the Chiefs use that 13 personnel that they've started to use more and more to get the Chargers in base? Because the first time they played, the Chargers were only in base, which is 4 DBs, only in base 4 times on first and second down. The Chargers on first and second down are the 23rd ranked defense in base personnel on first and second down. So that's what you want to get.
Which is even higher than you'd expect, by the way.
Right.
They played with heavier boxes this year than you might think they would.
Yes. But I looked that stat up. I thought it was going to be so low, but it was 23rd, but still below average.
We talk about throwing stuff against the wall, seeing what sticks. In order to defend the run this year, they've had to play with heavier boxes than they ideally want to, I think.
And it's funny you say that. They play with heavier boxes. They're way worse against the pass out of base. Obviously, heavier bodies, but they're loading the boxes. Way worse out of the pass, or against the pass out of base, than they are against the run. They're not great against the run, don't get me wrong. But also the Chiefs, when they're in those 13 personnel looks, the heavier personnel looks, they're great passing the ball out of them, because Kelsey's basically a second receiver. They move him. Yes, and so it's like, ooh, there's an avenue I think the Chiefs might go down for this game. Yeah, I know it's funny. We've hit these teams up on every single different angle, so it's kind of fun to kind of go like, oh yeah, we should be excited about this game, shouldn't we? I mean, anytime I get to gush about Patrick Mahomes, I'm pretty freaking excited. So
it's a game plan game more than it's an individual matchup game,
right?
Just because the Chargers are so depleted, and I do like Derwin against Travis Kelce when they play man. That's obviously worth watching, but the Chargers are just so banged up, and this version of the Chargers Chargers in general is so banged up compared to what we thought it was going to be, that side of it isn't that interesting. But I do think that the matchup and what your plan is for the Chiefs, the Chargers have always done some stuff that's a little bit different, a little bit weird. Even though when they played in week 2, the Chargers played like 50% man on first and second down, and they played more zone on third down, which is a little bit counterintuitive. So it's just every single time these two teams play, Staley's like, what do they think I'm going to do? I'm going to do the opposite of that. And that at least gives them a little bit more trouble than they might have otherwise.
Yeah.
Flipping to the other side of the ball here. I hate to even do this, but it sounds like Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are going to play.
I hope they do.
Good God. Let's operate as if they're going to play. What do you think is the most substantive, important change for the Chargers offense if both of these guys do actually play?
We knock the Chargers offense for being kind of static and traditional, which sometimes is good, but sometimes what they're running
It's not
isn't
good.
great. It's not it's not always great. But what the Chargers offense, what Joe Lombardi likes to do, because he runs just basically Sean Payton shit, is they love those 3-by-1 formations and using Mike Williams as a traditional X. Last year we were very excited about that. And then they kind of didn't take the next step from it. But why that is important is it gives Herbert the easy buttons. We talk about quarterbacks getting these easy buttons because in a traditional offense and a classic NFL style pro offense like Sean Payton or Joe Lombardi, is that when you have that X, that is a gimme throw or a one-on-one matchup throw. We have the 3 trip side. If you're in quarters, if you're in man, if you are in cover 3, that's one-on-one. Okay, we have this route on it tagged because he's on his own individual route away from the 3-man side. I can go and take it if I like it. Chiefs corners have played better than you would think.
Yeah, their secondary always plays better than you expect it to play. They're very well coached in the secondary.
But it gives Herbert just one way to attack him where he doesn't have to read something out where Gerald Everett and DeAndre Carter are running into each other. It's like, hey, I'm just going to take the cleanest path here to a completion. That helps. It helps just, keeps the offense moving along. They still need that deep threat, but whatever. But I think that does help. I think that's the one way that does help with Mike Williams and also with Keenan Allen, especially on third downs, is Keenan Allen moving to slot, winning those one-on-one matchups. So they have someone else that can win one-on-one outside of freaking Eckler. The fact that they had to rely on their running back to be their best pass catcher. He's a great pass catcher, but you don't want to live that way. So someone to attack that 5 to 15 yard area for Herbert and to win these matchups.
I thought it was so telling last week that they were moving the ball pretty well early in the game when the Niners were playing a lot of man coverage, because you can just do weird stuff against man coverage, right? Like you can do gimmicky things to create separation against man coverage.
Picks.
I'm running little slot fades. I'm running little picks. I'm running little rubs. I'm creating separation by formation and play design. The Niners eventually were just like, well, why are we doing this? Like, they don't have any guys that we're worried about actually feeling the game and beating us in zone coverage. So let's just do what we do. And the Chargers then struggle to move the ball. That's why Keenan Allen, and I don't think I've given this enough credence so far this season, and that's on me. I think that's why he's so important to their offense, is that the guys they have aren't detailed players who have feel for how to operate in that world. And that's exactly what he is. So having Mike Williams to push the ball down the field and then having Allen, if they're going to give you that space to exploit that space, becomes so incredibly important. So I just want to see the offense has been frustrating to watch all year. Obviously, it was frustrating to watch when they had both of those guys last year, but I do want to see both those guys back. The one other person worth mentioning, Trey Pipkins has been hurt. That has hurt them. 2 tackles out. Hopefully this team gets sort of back to right and we get to see just a better version of this offense down the stretch.
I agree. No, I want to just see, I just want to see Herbert have some fun again. I can just tell it's just not fun right now. And I just want to see him be able to have some confidence in who he's throwing to. There's a Trey McKitty like choice route or underneath route I saw, and he's tripping. And Seth Galina actually would message about this, and he said, Herbert came off the choice route before McKitty even tripped. Like, he's like, he's not going to win. Like, so the fact that that's what they're designing one-on-one routes for is one of the worst skill players in the league right now is that's where they're at. So having some guys he has confidence in, you think, watch Mahomes with freaking Travis Kelce. He has some real confidence of where he's about to be and where he can throw to. Having guys that he has confidence will help everything. And I think that's what we're hoping to see this Sunday.
And one of the other elements that I'm excited to watch, how does Kadarius Toney's role within the offense continue to grow? If teams are going to continue to challenge the Chiefs offense and play a bunch of man coverage because they're not afraid of separation from the receiving options, that's why you go get a Kadarius Toney, because you have one more guy that's got a little something to him. And we saw a little bit of that last week. So if the Chargers are going to come out on early downs and say, we're going to play a bunch of man coverage against you again, is that somebody that can start to exploit some of those matchups? I think that's going to be a huge part of figuring out and diagnosing what the Chiefs' offensive ceiling is and what sort of stuff they can work through here over the rest of the season.
Right.
One more thing I wanted to say. On a show last week, I said that the Chargers went into the season with 2 edge rushers on their 53-man roster. That is incorrect. They had 3. Chris Rumpf was also on their 53-man roster. My point about the Chargers being very, very thin at that position still stands, but I did want to correct myself.
Funny. Stars and scrubs. That's what they're built on.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to go under the hood with 2 contending offenses that have run into a little bit of trouble.
Reserve Bar is your online source for premium and luxury spirits, wine, and champagne. And now, Reserve Bar offers same-day delivery. They have a vast lineup of rare and hard-to-find bottles, premium brands, celebrity spirits, and limited releases that you won't find at your local store. No one does spirits gifting better than Reserve Bar. Looking for an elevated gift? ReserveBar.com has you covered, and you can get that gift delivered right to your door. They also have barware, glassware, cocktail recipes, and more. Need something for a party tonight? Reserve Bar now offers same-day delivery straight to your door. Visit ReserveBar.com today and use promo code Mays to save $10 off your purchase of $75 or more on spirits, wine, or pre-made cocktails, but only when you use our special offer at ReserveBar.com with code Mays. That's ReserveBar.com, code MAYS. This offer expires December 31st, 2022. With winter weather making it hard to stay active, here's a gift idea for the outdoor adventurer in your life, the Allbirds Meisel Collection. Designed for those who won't take snow for an answer, the Meisel features built-in puddle guard technology to help keep the winter wonderland where it belongs, not in your shoes. The premium ZQ certified merino wool with All-Dasher Meisel provides next-level comfort even on the coldest winter days. And their weather-ready soles offer enhanced traction so you can go on winter runs with confidence. Built using premium natural materials with a low environmental impact, Allbirds put the carbon footprint right on the shoe so you can see the difference that it makes. This holiday season, get on their nice list when you shop the Allbirds Meisel Collection. Discover your perfect pair at allbirds.com today. That's ALLBIRDS.com.
I better check under the hood.
All right. The Buffalo Bills are obviously one of the best offenses in the league. Statistically, they're still one of the best offenses in the league. But the last couple weeks, couple hiccups, especially in the second half. Wanted to just dive deeper on the Bills, just talk about them a little bit more, because I think we've kind of treated them as a given. You know, some of these teams that are rolling over the first half of the season, the Bills, the Eagles, who we're going to talk about, it's almost easy to skip over them just because they're crushing teams or they're playing so well that it's not really worth analyzing. The Bills are worth analyzing right now because they've run into some trouble. So just big picture takeaway. You watched the Bills last week against the Vikings. How are you feeling about where the Bills offense is at right now?
Man, it's a weird thing to say. It's like you said, it's a given sometimes when you watch this Bills offense. And I think Josh Allen being Josh Allen and being sometime at any time going supernova is one of the most exciting things in sports. I think he's one of the most fun athletes to watch, period. The problem with Josh Allen, I should say the problem, a feature or a bug of Josh Allen is 3 to 4 times a game, he's going to fuck up. He's going to put the ball in harm's way. He's going to try something. He's going to do too much. That's part of his game. That's what makes him Josh Allen. That's what makes him Professor Chaos. I think in a weird way, and this Bills offense is what we thought they were, in the sense that they are, and this is the analogy I like to use. I tweeted it, spoilers, last night, was that I said I look at them as like a 3-point shooting team in basketball. And the fact that they can get hot at any time, and they can just run you off the court in one half. And it's just like, holy shit, we're down 4 scores. We're down 3 scores. How can we can't tackle these guys? Oh my God, there goes the ostrich running down the field. But at times they can get cold, and they don't have the kind of safety blankets at times to overcome those misses. They don't have sometimes those layups, somebody else to take the load off Josh Allen. What I will say, and it's kind of a weird thing to say, there's actually some signs of what the Bills offense is doing, that they're trying to find answers that's not relying just on Josh Allen being a freak. And I think their run game, they're trying to diversify that. I'll always mention a diversifying run game. I love portfolio diversification. I love this with run games. But the Bills now are using a 6th offensive lineman a lot. They're using Bobby Hart as their extra tight end. They've done this the 5th most snaps in the entire NFL. They've used a 6th offensive lineman, including 24 times over the past 3 weeks. That's a significant amount, including they'll do against the Vikings. They did 11 personnel jumbo with a 6th offensive lineman. So Bobby Hart's the only tight end on the field, had a nice run play and had a nice play action play out of it. But their run plays out of jumbo sets, their rush success rate is 55.6%. To put that in perspective, the Eagles lead the league right now at 49.1%. The Bills normally are 12th in the NFL at 41.2%. So this is a big upgrade for their run game.
Yeah.
And this is just so they don't have to go, hey, Josh Allen, can you run another QB power for us? Hey, Josh, can you run a QB draw for us? And you're like, take the load off this guy. I mean, these hits accumulate. That's why his elbows get banged up. But I do think that this team, also with this Bills offense, this is the last stat I have with this. So they're the second best team by EPA per rush out of jumbo. They're tied for last with the Colts in designed rushes and all other personnel groupings. So they're
actively a bad running team in most situations.
And we talked early in this year, what are the blemishes of this Bills team? And that's the offensive line, the interior offensive line. And you see that show up. Josh Allen can mitigate a lot of these errors, but he only could do so much. And sometimes these matchups, pressure gets to him. The ball has to wave off of it. He has to scramble too early. And again, he can mitigate that, but it shows up with the other facets of their offense. So it's I don't know how to say this. It is what I thought. I do think they're trying to find answers, but it's not always perfect. It's not always perfect. Josh Allen's not going to always make the crazy throw. The ball is going to bounce the other way sometimes.
If you look at the numbers and even going back and watching that entire Vikings game, down to down, the Bills offense is really good, like really, really good. And the problem is some of that is rooted in volatile moments.
Yeah.
So I think I have a couple, there are like 2 or 3 issues that I saw and just thinking about them and rewatching them. There's the couple bad turnovers a game. That's a huge thing to consider. He's throwing in, especially in the red zone, like them turning the ball over in the red zone is a problem. And that stuff is decision making, and that just can't happen. The one was on a 4th down. That kind of is what it is. The Patrick Peterson play, Peterson makes a really nice play on that ball, but still Allen's trying to fit that in a way that probably is unnecessary. So I think that his decision making in sort of the tighter areas of the field is particularly important. Okay. The other things are they came into this season, and the guys that they signed along the offensive line, or the moves they made along the offensive line, the way they constructed that position group, they went to sign Roger Saffold, I think in part because Roger Saffold's an ass kicker in the run game. And that's what they needed. They needed to be able to run the ball better and have more physicality. So you have a left guard that isn't a great pass blocker. You have a right tackle who is not a great pass blocker.
Right.
And Ryan Bates is like, fine. This is not an elite offensive line.
Nope.
And when you're up against it, and you're trying to figure out how to push yourself across the finish line, and you have expensive pieces, when you go out and get a Von Miller, when you have signed Trey White and Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde and Matt Milano and all of these guys to extensions, Stephon Diggs is expensive.
There's always a give and take.
You have to. And Josh Allen's now on his extension.
Yep.
So, and they consciously decided we're going to skimp a little bit on the line because that's an area where Josh can mitigate where we're bad. Yep. And he does. His ability to just avoid sacks in any situation. He is the best quarterback in the league in EPA per dropback when pressured only from the pocket. That doesn't even include scrambles. So his ability to just operate within the confines of the pocket under pressure is really, really good. Their bet that they made is correct, but you still have to live with the consequences.
Yes.
So there's still a volatility to how they have to play because he's consistently avoiding pressure. And one of the just downstream effects of that is that occasionally they struggle to play on time as a passing offense.
Yep.
There are so many plays in that Vikings game where they can't do anything against zone coverage within the structure of a play because he's seeing a flash almost immediately after the play starts. So now he's in creation mode instantly.
Yep.
So at times they don't play on schedule on offense unless he's throwing like a deep comeback or something outside the numbers.
Right.
So the Vikings are the perfect sort of defense to take away things over the middle of the field when you're playing zone coverage, but they had nothing. They had absolutely nothing in that game over the middle of the field within the confines of the offense unless the Vikings blitzed.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to give them anything there, are they going to struggle to play on time and just within the rhythm of the offense? And I think the answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
So the offensive line concerns and how that affects their ability to play on time, I think those things are real. Whether they can overcome those in the long term, right, I think that's the bigger question. I tend to think the answer is yes. Because if Devin Singletary doesn't fumble at the 25-yard line in this game, the Vikings or the Bills probably win.
We're not talking about this. I know. And that's the other thing too, is that It's like Josh Allen threw a deep hinge. A deep hinge is it's an extended stop route. It's down the field on the outside, and he hit a couple of these. That's a hard way to live. Like that is a hard throw to make, a hard throw to complete. It's
the degree of difficulty is very high.
They are such a high wire act. They shoot 25, 30 foot threes over and over and over, and they hit them. It's like watching the Warriors sometimes. But it's sometimes you go cold. Sometimes you go 1 for 20 from 3, and it just looks like crap, or just have these blemishes where you miss 5 in a row in high leverage moments. But I also just want to talk. It's like they're permanently on a heat check. That's kind of how this offense plays. And
he is playing like that right now.
Yeah,
there were a couple moments where he's looking. I can't remember the exact play, but he tried to throw one to the pylon on a line to Gabe Davis when he had a crosser coming over the backside. Yeah. And it's like, you don't need to do that. The problem is that he threw for a touchdown earlier in the game. Yes, that's the concern, is that sometimes it does work.
Yeah. He's the ultimate no. Yeah, baby. Like that. He's that quarterback always, every single play. But the also the other one was what I thought of. He got sacked on this. And I'm trying to remember, it was off the left edge. So I'm trying to remember who got him. But against the Vikings were in a Tampa 2. Eric Kendricks is running down the pipe, and he had McKenzie running down the pipe. And you can see Josh Allen look to the corner, and then all of a sudden realize that he's about to have McKenzie running down the pipe, and you could see him getting ready to launch, and then he gets hit. But I was like, oh, that would have been like a 65-yard bomb, because the other thing, he's throwing it late. The fact that he could do that, his room for error is just it's incredible. Like he could just
he's
throw
often throwing it late.
Yes, I know.
The only real plays on time are the ones outside the numbers. It's weird to watch.
Or when he's replacing a blitz. Those are the two things. Yes, that's the other one, because he knows how to read that and hit that. That's the other thing with him, is that early in the year, and don't get me wrong, he's playing incredible. He's still incredible. He's so good. Is my dad, by the way, every time he watches Josh Allen play, he just goes, "Why could I coach this guy?" But every was that early in the year, all the commentators were like, "Man, Josh Allen's just reading the game like Peyton Manning now." Like I remember Chris Collins were saying that in week 1, and then they showed the zoomed up view of Josh Allen's eyes, and he's looking in 5 different directions, and then finally finding the throw and hitting it late. And I was like, it's a little different, guys. That's his own way of reading the play out. That's not how you really teach it. But the last thing I want to say with this Bills offense and why they're trying to find answers, and sometimes it's not always the right way, but they're trying stuff, is we talked about simulated pressures when the Bills would be in empty, and simulated pressures they'd get gamed up, where Josh Allen have to throw hot and throw underneath, and he'd be pressured because he has to deal with a free runner. So against the Vikings, they had kind of a change-up look off of this. And it was pretty cool, is they, rather than have the guys slide down, have the tackles, when you got a pressure coming, an off-ball pressure, and you're in a 5-man protection, like an empty, is that you're trying to make it the longest path to the quarterback. So the tackles will squeeze inside to make it the longest path. So sometimes the D end will end up free because the tackle's squeezing in for the linebacker, the off-ball player. So the Vikings brought one of these, and how the Bills adjusted to this was they had Mitch Morse do his half slide, and then once he recognized what the pressure was, he pulled for the blitzer. He came right back around. Mitchell Schwartz and I were messaging each other. He called this like a molly pop. This is there's different words for this. Dual read is the guard tackle version of this, but it's its own version. Bobby Johnson has a clinic on it. He's now the Giants offensive line coach, but it's kind of
he was the Bills offensive line coach.
Yes, exactly. And they did this a couple times last year. Some guys from Cover One that cover the Bills mentioned that to me, is that that's a nice little wrinkle. And so it's one of those things, it's like a sight adjust. It's that you can practice it. And it comes up like 2 or 3 times a year. So it's kind of one of those, it's like, is it worth it? And that's what
value received. Yeah.
Correct. And especially with limited practice time, all that stuff. So that's what frustrates me sometimes with the Bills offense, is they'll do those things. It's like, yes, you found an answer, but there's better ways to do that. In that look, there's ways they could have full slid based on the safety look, based on everything, and wadded up the protection or wadded up the blitz. It'd been fine. It'd been protected, but they don't look for those answers sometimes. Sometimes they always look for the hard answers, or the cool, like try to be like the cool kids club with some of their answers. So I'll say it's like they find the answer, but sometimes it's not maybe the most straight line one. And sometimes I want them to take the straight line one.
So the last 2 games, they haven't scored a second half touchdown in the last 3 games. I think it's important to acknowledge that I don't think that's indicative of any second half failures, right? Like, oh, they get figured out in the second half. Here are their second half drives against the Vikings. First drive, they had a 3rd and 1 where Mitch Morse gets destroyed
Oh, he got
on a
blasted.
3rd and 1 and it leads to a sack. But it's 3rd and 1.
Yeah.
If you just run the ball with Josh Allen in that situation, you probably get it, right? They get stuffed on 3rd and 1 in the red zone on their second drive, and then they don't go for it on 4th and 2, which is not something that the Bills typically do. They were winning. They were up by 2 scores at that point. Yeah. But that's why, like, just do it. Just put the game away.
Such
go for it. Team. And then it's 31-10, and then you're in good shape. So they didn't go for it on the 3rd and 1 at the 22-yard line. So they drive into near the red zone again. 4th and 2 interception by Patrick Peterson at the 7-yard line. So they've driven the ball all the way down there again. 2-minute drill is the last one, and then there's the OT interception. So they drove again all the way down into the red zone in the second half. So they're moving the ball. It's not like they short circuit in the second half. And I think that it's important to think about their opponents. The last 2 weeks they played against the Jets and they played against the Vikings. Both teams that play a shitload of zone coverage and play it well. So no easy answers. Like, we're going to make you earn it the entire time. We're not going to give you any easy options. And you're playing against disciplined, well-coached defenses. Yes. Guess what they get this week, baby? They get a Browns defense that can't find its way out of a paper bag. This is a real get-right potential game for the Bills here. And we just learned while recording this, they're going to play it in Detroit. Yeah. So we finally get a Bills home game in a dome where we get to see what Josh Allen and Steph Diggs will look like when they're playing inside.
Is that funny? Like, I know they've had the K-gun offenses in the snow. Like, they get these guys in these offenses, but they have the worst weather for it. That was like the Packers offense with Rodgers for years. It was like, man, imagine this team in like Atlanta or Rodgers like that in those domes. Like, how good that would look.
I do think that they're going to be fine. Like, again, a couple of these bounces go the right way, and the high wire act ends up they land the dismount in ways they haven't the last couple of weeks. But I do think it's important to understand that there is some volatility built into this because of the way that they play. And it's almost intentional. They built the team this way, knowing that the quarterback is the guy that can potentially get them out of this stuff. So couple down moments. I don't think it's indicative of any sort of long-term struggles that are going to hamstring them down the stretch. I think they're still the team to beat in the AFC or right there with the Chiefs. Nothing about the last couple of weeks has gotten me off of that.
That's kind of how I feel as well. It's just, they're a high wire act. This is how they play. This is what it's the Marilyn Monroe quote. If you can't take me at my worst, you can't take me at my best, or you don't deserve me at my best, because that is what this team is.
All right, let's get to the Eagles here. Eagles are still 8-1. They're still the 1 seed in the NFC, but the first real mistake, first real misstep from them on Monday night against Washington. Same question. You're watching that Eagles game over again. What is your kind of big picture feel about where Philadelphia is right now offensively?
Well, one is that, God dang, they can run the ball. And they should always just lean into it. First down, second down, third down, fourth down. They try to. But watching that team, watching that game against Washington, it was interesting to watch. God, stop saying this. Is that I got baby brain already. I'm like burnt. But watching,
I don't even have an excuse. So
I know watching what they were doing is sometimes the ball was bouncing a different way than what has been bouncing the first few weeks of the year or first half of the year. And also is that this is an offense base. They have so many talented players, like offensive line, of course, the 3 weapons, but now Dallas Goedert's hurt. We'll talk about that in a sec. But I thought it was interesting against this Commanders defense was the Commanders were primarily when Eagles would trot out 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers, the Washington would trot out with a single high coverage on 87% of the snaps. 20 out of 23 11 personnel snaps is either man or cover 3. And I thought that was interesting in the sense that they were going, okay, we're going to dare you to hit those throws that you think you can hit all the time. We're going to make you throw slants, because the way that the Eagles beat man coverage is slants and go balls. It's the
AJ Brown show.
It's the AJ Brown show. That is why you pay a guy, because that guy destroys man coverage. But how they beat it is slants and go balls. And we saw a third down. They threw a slant, and I believe it was Fuller, knocked the ball down. They got off the field.
Awesome game by him, by the way.
Great game.
He had a couple really nice moments in that game.
Yeah, Washington DBs. We'll talk about them in a sec. But so that was one third down, and then there was the other was they ran it was the interception. The Forest had the interception deep when they targeted AJ Brown, And that's the go balls. That is why we call them 50-50 balls, is because the coin can flip the other way. Sometimes you bet heads, you're hitting heads all the time. Wow, this is great. Why doesn't everyone do this? Ask the Bengals what happens. Like this is why teams, it's hard to live that way. You can get hot. If you have great players, it's great. That's why, and the concept that they ran on that interception was 989. And I've said this with the Bengals team. I've said this with a lot of teams. When you run 989, that is we have better
989
players.
is 2
verticals on the outside and
read route in the
middle read route in the middle. This is what Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb interception, same exact concept. And that play is we have better players than you do play. That is what that play is. That is a play. If you
Eagles do.
Yes, they can do that. But sometimes the ball doesn't bounce your way. And sometimes you don't win that one-on-one. Sometimes the safety is over the top and you shouldn't be throwing it. Sometimes it's just, that's what happens when you're living that way. But that's how they designed the offense to beat the man coverage, is that. And so I thought that that game was one of those that we finally got to see when it all just didn't break right. And, they still hung in the game. Like, they're still moving the ball and doing some fine things. They barely even touched the ball, it felt like, for a while. And also the other thing is, the Dallas Goedert injury. I'll let you talk. Sorry, I've been talking for a while.
Buddy. We missed you. You got to make up for some lost time here.
I'm pent up, man. It's but they love to run 12 personnel. They run 12 personnel 20% of the time, which is above average rate. They're the second best team of all the teams that primarily run it. They're the second best team by EPA per play out 12 personnel. So losing Dallas Goedert, it's interesting. Dallas Goedert is a great player. And all the tight end screens, the underneath stuff. He's a great corner route runner. The good thing is that the Eagles run 13 personnel with Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra. Yes. They run that so they can get those guys in, but it's not Dallas Goedert. So that's why I brought up the single high stuff, because if they're going to trot out more 11 personnel, I think they might have to start finding more answers for that outside of just pounding the rock, which they can do.
The play you mentioned, the interception, where they're going deep to A.J. Brown, is to me the play that encapsulates this entire thing about what was different about the Eagles on Monday night compared to what they were over the first 9 weeks of the season. The Eagles lost the turnover differential. I was doing some quick math here. I should look this up before we started. I believe there was -2 on Monday night. Okay, 3 lost fumbles, 1 interception. They are still on the season +13 in the turnover differential column after losing by 2 on Monday night. So, I mean, they were +15 coming into the Monday night game. That throw that gets picked by Forrest is the exact play against the exact team that Devontae Smith had that monster catch on earlier in the season when the Eagles played Washington. They've run that and made that throw 3 different times this season. Twice to A.J. Brown, once to Devontae Smith. The first one, Devontae Smith, was completed. He dunked on a dude to make that play 50 yards down the field. They ran in the second half of the Washington game to A.J. Brown, and autoplay videos. Good to get distracted here. They ran it the second half of that game against Washington. It goes incomplete, right? Because it's into double coverage.
Yep.
Right. It makes sense. And then the third time they throw it, it gets intercepted. So you talk about flipping the coin. Eventually, it's going to come up tails when you keep doing this. When nothing about the circumstances change, the outcome is completely random. Yes. So this is the third outcome, which you can expect. The Quez Watkins play, where he makes a huge play down the field and the ball squirts out. Like, these are the things that happen over the course of an NFL season. Yes. So they got really lucky in one area over the first half of the season. They got less lucky on Monday night.
Yeah.
A couple things I do think are worth paying attention to. I am concerned about their ability to push the ball down the field against teams that are going to try to put a roof over them a little bit. Washington did that. 2 of Jalen Hurts' attempts in that game went at least 15 yards in the air. You could see them. It was the interception and it was the Quez Watkins play. That's it.
Over.
Okay. That's it. When things compress for them, how do they operate in that compressed space? Because if they're going to play against a team like Pittsburgh, who's going to give you those go balls, they're going to burn you down because their players are better than you. But if you make them earn it through the passing game, what do they look like? Especially now they don't have that screen button that they can consistently press with Goddard. So that is the one thing I'm looking at. And also, if they're going to play against you that way against you, run the ball 35 times.
Yes. That's why I think.
I understand that it's easy to get intoxicated by AJ Brown and the guys that you have and Jalen Hurts playing better, just grind them into sawdust for 4 quarters. And I think that it's not an exciting answer. And we know play callers get bored, but I do think that has to be the thing that you go back to if they're going to make you play in that compressed space.
And it's funny you say that, because that's one of the compliments I've had for that Eagles offensive staff, is that they were willing to repeat play calls early in the year. They're willing to go, hey, we're running this, and it works, because RPOs have different answers, which helps. And it felt like this game was the first time they're like, all right, we're going to try this out. They got away from some stuff that was working, which I thought was kind of interesting. I was like, whoa, hey, you were running that zone smoke play earlier, and it looked great. You ran the empty QB run play on like the first play of the game. That looked amazing. It might've been a red zone call. Go back to that. Get Jalen Hurts going. That's his greatest strength. He's one of the best runners at any position in the league. Get him going, because it felt like a couple times, especially like on 2nd and long, they were trying these drop back plays, and it was, that's just not the way they want to win. I mean, that's not how they're built. So I think it's just, they have to kind of simplify it. It's already a fairly simple offense, but just, again, another offense that's a straight line it. And I think this is they maybe needed a game like that to maybe kind of reset them. I think it hurts that Goddard's out, but I think that maybe will help.
So now they're playing against a team in Indianapolis this week that has some similar DNA to the way that Washington wants to play.
Zach Pascal revenge game, John Wick game. I didn't even think of
Huge missed opportunity for us. I think we're the only possible thing in football media that could pull up a 5-minute we pull off a 5-minute Zach Pascal conversation. It wouldn't seem weird. We did our James Lynch talk earlier today. Like we're all set.
I have a Zach Pascal stat, by the way. There are 136 receivers this year have played 100 or more snaps. He has the 4th lowest pass rate when he's on the field. So there's a little bit of an indicator when Pascal's on the field that the Eagles are going to run the ball.
It doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't
matter. I'm sure they average like 6.5 yards per carry.
Oh no, they're great plays. There's a reason he's on the field, because he's thumping dudes. So yeah, no, it makes sense.
So the Colts, obviously some differences. But Washington plays a little bit more man coverage, a decent amount more man coverage. A lot more blitzing from Washington, the Colts, but still, they can stop the run with very consistently out of not super heavy personnel. They're really good in their front 4 stopping the run. Your Grover Stewarts are the same sorts of impact players that guys in the interior for Washington have, DeForest Buckner, and they're going to play a decent amount of soft zone against you and say, we're going to make you earn this. So if you just can't grind them down in the run game, because Indy is, I think they're 4th in the NFL in defensive success rate against the run. What does this look like, the plan from the Eagles offense? So I think it's a good test back to back with what Washington was, because there are elements of those two defenses that are similar enough where I want to see how the Eagles respond.
Great call. Yeah. The Colts defense is built to take jabs. They're built to take those punches over a game, but can the Eagles, play that way, like willing to do that? But yeah, I'm glad you gave Grover Stewart a shout out, because he's playing freaking amazing this year.
There's a reason that the Colts can stop the run. I mean, in this way, it's because they have those dudes up front.
Yeah, he's a one-man wrecking machine. I think it's like on-off splits. It's like when he's on the field, they like are far and away the best run defense by success rate. It's pretty crazy with his on-off splits.
All right, we're gonna take one more quick break, and then we're gonna get back and talk about the team that beat the Eagles on Monday night.
It's time to knock that new business idea out of the park with Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Forget the off-season work. Shopify makes it simple to sell to anyone from anywhere. Whether you're selling warm-ups or wall hangers, it's time to start selling with Shopify and join the platform simplifying commerce for millions of businesses worldwide. Shopify fields all the sales channels to grow a winning business, from in-person POS systems to the all-in-one e-commerce platform, even across social media platforms like TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. It's how every minute new sellers from around the world score their first sale with Shopify. And you can too. When you're ready to take a winning idea to the world, team up with Shopify, the commerce platform powering millions of businesses down the street and around the globe. Try out Shopify for free today and start selling anywhere. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a free trial at shopify.com/maze. Go to shopify.com/maze to start selling online today. Shopify.com/maze. The holidays should be celebrated in style, but why stop at decking the halls when you could be decked out from head to toe? Indochino makes it easy to upgrade your look with made-for-you suits, shirts, outerwear, and more. And for a limited time, shop Indochino's Black Friday event for the biggest sale of the year. Indochino gives you a made-for-you experience at a great price. And during their Black Friday event, made-for-you suits start at just $329, and premium shirts start at just $49. Elevate your style without spending a fortune. It's the season of giving, so give yourself something made just for you with Indochino. Shop the Black Friday event now through November 27th at Indochino.com and get 10% off all purchases of $3.99 or more using promo code MAYS. That's INDOCHINO.com, promo code MAYS. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Creating a free job posting on LinkedIn Jobs is easy. You just add the job and purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. With simple tools like screening questions, you can make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/mays. That's linkedin.com/MAYS to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
What are you?
I really love that you found that drop. It's a really cheap thing that we can go to as we structure the show. We don't know how to talk about these teams. So thank you very much, my friend.
Welcome.
The Washington football team, after beating the Eagles on Monday, is 5-5. The Washington football team plays the Houston Texans this weekend. Not sure if you guys know this, but the Houston Texans are not very good at playing football. Washington has the 29th ranked strength of schedule the rest of the way, according to our Austin Bach at The Athletic. As things currently stand, they have a 21.8% chance to make the playoffs, according to our in-house numbers at The Athletic.
Unbelievable.
What do we make of the Washington football team right now?
I don't know.
Beller,
mean,
get that C word out of the lower third. I don't want that as part of this show.
I love that because I know you've had to train yourself so hard not to say San Diego Chargers and the Oakland Raiders. So you're like, I trained it to say Washington football team. I still usually call them Washington. I just say Washington now. And yeah, Commanders. Yeah, I know that. I'm not going to stick with that. I do know this with Washington. Their defensive line is full of ass kickers and they're getting Chase Young back, which is really cool, really fun. Their offense with Scott Turner down up plays is creative. Sometimes you can see what they're trying to do. They sometimes are not always able to do it, depending on quarterback play. Last year, sometimes it was because DeAndre Carter was running the wrong route. Oh, weird. He does the same thing.
It's become a theme.
Weird, right? Oh my God. There's so many times last year I'd watch. I'm like, oh wow, they're running like this 4-strong sail look. And DeAndre Carter would like stop his route. I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, come on, that's wide open. So I would feel for Scott Turner as a play caller. But yeah, I think this offense, we called it a fever dream early in the year. They're creative. I understand what they try to do. But sometimes they're not always able to do it. And they got some fun pieces on defense. And that's where I'm at with this team. And Taylor Heineke is always going to be, he's a stunt man playing quarterback. Mario Puig, that's how he put it. And I really thought that was perfect. He said he's Johnny Knoxville playing quarterback. And that is, it's the best and out. I'm like, I can't get that out of my head now.
Taylor Heineke, we all know this by now. When they win, he gets a bonus. It's like built into his contract because he's the backup, but he's started a little bit, so he got it built into his contract. He's literally playing with house money. Every time they win, he's literally playing with house money. He gets a bonus, and he buys a pair of Jordans in the other team's colors every time they win a game. It's just his life is found money at this point.
I love this.
He has an XFL backup. Like everything about his existence is that of I should not be here and I'm fully aware of it and I love him for it. Anyway, let's talk about the game plan they had on Monday night because I do think it's a good way to understand them. There's them offensively. Okay. Mm-hmm. Divisional game, you know your opponent, you know what they like to do. Year 2 of Jonathan Gannon. I think year 2 of Scott Turner calling plays for Washington, or year 3?
Year 3. Year 3.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Washington comes into that game using 11 personnel on 79% of snaps, third highest rate in the NFL. Eagles know that.
Yep. Against
Philadelphia, only 59% 11 personnel, 36% of their snaps, they used 2 tight ends. They were in 12 personnel on 15.7% over the first 9 weeks, 26% against Eagles on Monday night. They had 11 plays of 13 personnel coming into the game. They had 8 plays of 13 personnel against the Eagles on Monday night. And when they were in those heavy personnel packages, they were thrown out of it. Every time that they had multiple tight ends on the field, or not every time, but that's what they were trying to accomplish. When they were in those heavy personnel groups, they were throwing out of it. And a lot of those big plays you saw them hit in that game were out of those looks. Another small wrinkle and example. Terry McLaurin hits that big bend crosser at one point in the game. The Eagles are playing quarters, okay? He's in a condensed split on the left side of the formation. He's the sole receiver to that side. So based on the rules, the corner of that side, I believe it's Darius Slay, has him all the way across the field. When you're in a condensed split, that's a long way for that corner to go. He has no shot. And that's just beating zone coverage by play design. Yep. And that side was voided out by a go ball. There's a ton of space. Heineke puts it into that space. That's what you see. There are elements of the offense like this makes sense. I understand exactly what they're trying to accomplish here, exactly how they're trying to attack this team. And you see that consistently. They're put in pretty good spots. Their quarterback play has been great, and they've run into some issues this year, especially along the offensive line and the injuries that they've had. Yep. But when you watch the offense, every single time I dig into it, I'm like, I get it. I get what they're trying to do here. And they have enough good players like the way that McLaurin is playing right now, where sometimes you see it all unfold in the way that you want it to.
Right. And when Dotson was healthy, it's like, oh, okay. And, and then how they're using Curtis Samuel. They had Curtis Samuel running a short yardage run. And none of this is gimmicky. That's what that's what you're saying. They're putting in good spots. Everything is sound. Like Scott Turner is doing Norv Turner stuff, obviously, but it's just, with a ton of window dressing. He is just trying everything possible. He understands what defenses are doing. And I think that tight end example, the usage of their personnel, shout out to Armani Rogers, former UNLV quarterback, Ohio Bobcat quarterback, tight end, Shrine Bowl, exceptional at the Shrine Bowl. And I was like, hey, I hope someone gives this guy a shot. The Washington, oh my God, I almost called him their old name. Washington gave him a really good shot. And they ran a jet sweep to him a couple of weeks ago. They're using these guys in a lot of ways. So, when Dotson is healthy and like he was playing, is that just gives them another element where it's like, okay, the designs are there. And now we have guys that can take advantage of those designs. So it's like using tight ends made sense of going against that Eagles defense in the sense that the Eagles defense, when they're trying to now Jordan Davis is hurt, they're trying to find their way to stop the run.
They have to load up the box to stop the run. They have to, based on the personnel that they have.
When you're in 13, John Bates is a hell of a blocker. So they have him in the game. And now they have these other guys. They have Armani Rogers, and Logan Thomas is a good athlete. Those are matchup advantages against most linebackers and safeties if they have to guard them. So it makes sense. So why not run a sail route where you have an advantage with these guys, or an over route or something? Again, none of these designs or these plays are new. It's just that they window dress the hell out of them. And it's cool. Early in the year, they ran I've said sail like 20 times because they run it like 20 times a game. They ran a sail route out of split backs, and they had Antonio Gibson releasing. Yeah, it was week 1, right? Releasing from the opposite side. It's a fever dream sometime, but it is sound. So I don't know. That was a game plan thing using those tight ends. But the fact that he can use that tool, and this offense can use that tool, shows like they understand. He understands what they're trying to accomplish. But it's an interesting team, a team that I didn't think I'd be talking about in middle of November. But I'm glad I'm talking about it. I'm enjoying watching this team on offense and defense more than I thought I would, like going into week 3.
The defense is what we wanted the defense to be.
Yes.
They're 5th in the NFL in dropback success rate. They're 5th in rushing success rate. This is when you had the personnel that they had after the first year of Rivera, how well they're playing on defense. That's why last year was just like, what is going on? They should just be so much better than this on defense. And we know they have dudes up front. Allen, Payne is playing extremely well. Sweat gives them a lot. We know that. I think they finally figured something out on the back end here.
Yeah.
So they had, obviously William Jackson's gone now. They cut him, I believe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how bad it was. And they've been trying to figure out the right pieces on the back end. Benjamin St. Juste is a 6'3" corner. They're trying to play in the slot at the beginning of the season in order to get him, Fuller, and William Jackson on the field at the same time. So Jackson's gone now. They have St. Juste back outside, which he should be. He had a bullshit pass interference call against him in that game.
He's playing well.
He has the tools to be really good out there. That's where he should be. And so they have Forrest, who had the pick. has had some really good moments this year.
Yep.
He is an encouraging player.
Very
Cam
heady.
Curl is Cam Curl is a good player. So they got those two guys on the back end, and getting those safeties on the field is a good thing. And so they couldn't figure out, like, who do we play in the slot? How do we do this? And last week, for the first time, Bobby McCain was their main slot corner. I think he played 30 snaps in the slot on Monday. So now your best 5 is Curl and Forrest at safety, McCain in the slot, St. Juste and Fuller. And when you watch them last week, it's like, I think this is it.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is your best group. And you combine that with the dudes they have up front, it's like, all right, like, I can get on board with this. I think they're going to give people a really hard time over the course of the season. And if their offense can have these one-off game plans where they're getting put in good positions, then I think that they're going to be a pain to deal with. I don't know what their ceiling is or how dangerous they really are with Heineke at quarterback, which is why they wanted to upgrade from him anyway. But I do think that what they're doing defensively, plus the punches they can occasionally throw on offense, it's why they can catch a team like the Eagles flush the way that they did on Monday.
And that Eagles offensive line is great, but that's their defensive line is so freaking good. Like you said, Allen's playing like really legitimately at all pro level this year.
Elite player.
Yes, he's a truly elite player. And Payne's always been good, but now this year, I wonder if it's his contract year, because he is playing fantastic. And on top of it, Montez Sweat has played very, very well this year. So
and now Chase Young's coming back.
And then Chase Young's coming back. But this is a team. Not every team's got a good O-line. That's why they're always able to hang in games, because they're going to make it hard as hell on you up
when
front.
you're winning that matchup every single week.
Every week. It's good. It's a good thing. It's a
good way to hang in games.
Yes. Because an offense, you have to account for everybody. And it's like, well, we can't do that because so-and-so's matched up with this guy. We can't, oh man, they have Allen on our guard. Well, we got to run away from him, but we're running right at Montez Sweat, who's pushing the tight end into him. Like that's what good players up front do. But the thing was, and 2 years ago, when they had kind of like a surprisingly good defense and they were doing all the 5 down stuff, and we were like, oh, okay, they won once. If they block it up, though, you could dice them down the field. Now, these DBs are playing so well that now it's just giving them more answers and more ways to defend, like literally. And it's cool. It's a very fun defense to watch, and one that I didn't expect to be this fun to watch. And on top of it, like, they're running like simulated pressures a little bit more than I was expecting. They got the Eagles a couple times with those. I like that. And so this unit's really coming together, and they got some really, really fun pieces. I've become more of a fan of especially those DBs like St. Juste. Like he showed up a couple of weeks when I've watched him, and now I think he's putting it together. He's still a raw player, but I think he does some really nice things.
Young. I mean, there's a lot of those
tools
pieces
guy.
Are really young, and we'll get to that in a second. So the one other thing I wanted to bring up here, okay, St. Juste was the 3rd round pick in 2021. Okay, so he's still a very young player. All right, so looking at the numbers of the 2 quarterbacks who have played for the Washington football team this year, they are pretty much identical. It's in every single category. Standard stats, advanced stats. Looking at it, sorry, I lost my notes here. Okay. The numbers that are pretty much the same: completion percentage, yards per attempt, EPA per dropback against the blitz, completion percent against the blitz, yards per attempt against the blitz. All of them are in like half a yard of each other, less. Often it's like 0.2, 0.3 percentage points in every single one of these stats. Washington traded 2 third-round picks and is paying Carson Wentz $26 million this year. Taylor Heineke is the same.
Yeah.
The results are the exact same. I love that every single year teams are doing this, where they scramble and trade multiple picks to pay Carson Wentz $25 million a year. And by Thanksgiving, they're like, how do I control Z this shit? Like, how do I get out of this? Every year it's been happening. It's wild. It would have been the same team, and Taylor Heineke's teammates like him more.
Love him.
The vibes are clearly better.
Love him.
It's so frustrating to watch teams do this over and over and over again. The biggest difference in their stats this season is, to me, maybe the most important difference. Taylor Heineke, let's start with Wentz. Wentz was targeting Terry McLaurin, the best player on the Washington football team offense by far. He is awesome. Terry McLaurin is like a top 10, top 12 sort of receiver based on
he makes $20 million.
Correct. And none of us batted an eye.
No.
And he got that contract, and nobody was like, I don't know about that. Every single person that actually watches was like, yeah, dude's a dog. Like, I absolutely support that. Carson Wentz targeting Terry McLaurin on 16% of his routes this year, according to Next Gen Stats. Heineke, it's been 30. Heineke is throwing the ball to Terry McLaurin, their best offensive player, twice as often as Carson Wentz is. It is the most notable difference in their play this season is the fact that Taylor Heineke's like, that's my best guy. I'm going to throw it to him a lot.
Heineke must be a better scout than Wentz. He can evaluate talent a little bit better, but sometimes it's easy as that. I'm going to give the ball to my best player as much as possible, and hopefully good things happen, and usually they do.
So now I'm going to go down a road that I am instantly going to regret. Okay. If the defense can be pretty good moving forward into next year, I'm not saying they have to be a top 5 defense. If they can be a solid defense, because a lot of these guys are back. St. Just is young. Curl is young. Derek Forrest is young. Kendall Fuller is under contract. The defensive line, Allen has gotten an extension. Chase Young is going to be there. Montez Sweat is under contract. Payne is a free agent, but that's really it. Most of the core on defense will be back. Defense is volatile. We know this. So relying on the same results might be a little dicey, but just stick with me here. If they can have that defensive core, and we're fairly excited about it. Their offensive line has been a nightmare this year. It's been banged up the entire season. Cosby's been hurt. Rouillet's on IR. Schweitzer's on IR. They've been shuffling all those pieces. So theoretically, can they get a little healthier or better along the offensive line? And the pass catchers are going to be there. McLaurin just signed that extension. Samuel's still under contract, I believe, next season. Johnson was a first-round pick this year. So most of this team, a team that is about to be 6-5 and has some stuff about them that we like, is going to be the same. If they move on from Wentz this offseason, which he has no guaranteed money left on his deal, they could have $45 million in cap space. Am I so wrong to think that if they got like a real NFL quarterback into this situation, that they could be pretty good? Is that crazy?
I don't think it's crazy. I can't believe I'm saying that. I just really can't. I don't. I think if they got that Cousins tier quarterback, I'm not saying Kirk Cousins, but we all know the joke.
It would be hilarious if it was Kirk Cousins, though.
Oh,
it would be hilarious.
I know. I don't think he would ever. Looks. I think he has to wait for Dan Snyder to be out there for him to come back. But that's the thing. But if you got that type of tier quarterback, man, they got so many fun pieces. They got a fun offensive design. They got a defense that'll keep them in a lot of games. That's an interesting kind of like setup for a team. And it's not one I thought like September 2nd that I would be thinking.
I did not think I'd be here. I really didn't think I'd be here. I thought we would get to the end of the season and be like, this was a fun try. Like, I understand why you wanted to get Rivera and have him be a stabilizing force. Like, let's see what's next. So here's the hypothetical that I have for you. If we want to keep going down this road that, again, I'm instantly going to regret when somebody replays this a month from now.
Theory.
The Washington football team, or the Las Vegas Raiders right now, are slated to pick in the top 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It might be time for them to figure out the next stage of their franchise. The Washington football team, I think, is picking like 17th right now. If you're Washington and you have that $45 million in cap space, and you can fit some version of his contract in here, we can talk about that in a second. I give you my 17th pick and a 3rd rounder for Derek Carr.
I think both teams say yes, don't they? I mean, Raiders have to. I mean, they're a team that need to be building resources, even though this before the year they were acting like they were like a playoff team. So
Carr is a $31 million base salary next year.
Okay,
it's all base salary.
Yeah.
So if you want to sign him to some sort of extension, throw some dummy money onto it, you could easily get his cap hit down next year down to like 20 million without really stretching yourself that far, which still leaves you with $25 million in cap space.
It's interesting.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I know. Man, the NFC East. God, just all these teams. They're just finding ways to all these avenues they're finding. But no, I know. And when we first we're kind of talking about these thoughts.
We just talked about that team for 15 minutes.
And this was supposed to be just a drive-by like that. We're like, oh yeah, they're doing some fun stuff. No, but they're a more interesting team than I think we especially didn't give credit for it. And I'm going to keep my eye on them. With the
I was shocked about how interesting I found them when I started watching again.
Agreed.
And just like, all right, digging into some of this stuff. All right.
Agreed.
Last thing before we get to fourth screen here, it's time to check in on Zach Wilson and Mac Jones. They play each other again this week. They just recently did, so we have that in the very recent past. I want to talk about Zach Wilson and kind of where he is right now and what it means for the Jets moving forward. The Jets have done a really, really nice job putting this team together. And somebody was giving me shit recently because I saw Joe Douglas had all of these picks and cap space this year, and that's why like what he did this year should make an executive of the year. Like who gave him all of those? That's why executive of the year is hard, because the moves you made 2 years ago help you make the moves that you're making now. But like, should it be this calendar year? How do you end up doing it? Joe Douglas has done a very good job of putting this team together. They have a lot of things in place. Is Zach Wilson the guy to bring all of that together based on the way that he has played right now? Because the last time we saw him play against this Patriots team, it was a nightmare. It was an absolute disaster. So where are you at with Zach Wilson right now, halfway into his second season?
A lot of the stuff that I was hoping to see growth from him, I haven't seen consistently. And he's shown flashes. That's what his whole game is. It's flashes. It's the trick shots. But when he is the consistent stuff, when he has a clean pocket and where his eyes are calm and his feet are calm and he knows exactly where he's going with the ball, he looks great. I mean, he will hit a in-breaker with the best of them, and they love it. LaFleur is that in that Shanahan offense. They'll go in the gun. They'll do the gun runs, fake gun runs with a glance route, a drift route, whatever you want to say, and he'll whip that ball in there with the best of them. It's really good to see that. The touchdown to Conklin against this team, he hits it right in the red zone. And on that play, Zach Wilson takes a calm drop. His footwork's nice and sound, doesn't take an extra hitch, and places the ball perfectly. The thing is that is always just scary with him is that it's just not consistent. Has the offensive line been hurt? Yes. Elijah Vera-Tucker was playing very well until he got hurt. Breece Hall was a nice, really nice player for him. He gets hurt as well. They trade for James Robinson, but James Robinson, as much as I like him, is not Breece Hall. Breece Hall is a star. Even as a rookie, it's like, oh, this guy's different. Michael Carter is a nice player. Again, they have all these nice players. The receiver corps is great. Garrett Wilson, all these guys. God, nice to see Denzel Mims out there again, by the way. But watching Zach Wilson is that a lot of times I feel like he just doesn't trust off his first read. I feel like he struggles to progress at times. And I was hoping to see maybe more growth from that. And I think just right when you were hoping to see that growth, he has played some tough defenses too. That's another thing. But hoping to see that growth, and the play that sticks out in my mind is against the Broncos. The Broncos are amazing pass defense. Honestly, as much as we laugh at that Broncos offense, we've talked about on the show, that Broncos defense is very, very enjoyable to watch. But they bring a simulated pressure. Michael Carter, because he's a stud, picks up the protection, easy, like doesn't even hesitate. It's a nice, clean pocket. But as soon as Zach Wilson catches the snap, he bails out of the pocket and he goes into creation mode. He can't. It's good that he can do those things, that he can create. That's why he got drafted so high. His BYU tape.
I don't want him to be in creation mode.
No,
I'm out on him in creation mode. We'll talk about that in a second.
In the NFL, because he's not playing against, these teams that were with the receivers with Dax Milne dunking on guys down the field. He's playing against real NFL defenses that are going to punish when you make these. I mean, ask Josh Allen. When you just like miss those throws just a little bit, they punish you. It's not just a drop ball or incompletion. So I think that he has to get to he has to do the easy stuff. He has to learn to be comfortable progressing from the pocket. His feet have to not be so happy. He has the George Miller happy feet. And I think that just comes up sometimes. You like that? I think it just comes up sometimes. And that's where the blemishes come. And it's like the longer the play goes, the more he becomes unraveled. And so I think it's just that he has to keep things short and tight to see more growth. And he hasn't, I'm not, it's been a little disappointing because I thought I would see more of this.
He's gotten worse.
Yeah.
And
that's what's a little scary. And that's what's a little scary for me. Yeah. Okay. And so that's what I'm hoping.
Last year was negative 0.58 EPA per dropback when pressured. This year it's negative 0.98. Okay. It's dead last in the NFL comfortably. That means that every single time he is pressured when they're dropping back, it's a point. They lose a point.
It's a rouge. Every time he goes rogue, it's a rouge. There we go. That's what
Josh Allen and Mahomes are at like 0. Yeah. So it's a point difference between him and the best quarterbacks in the league when he's pressured. When he's not pressured, on plays where he is not pressured, where do you think Zach Wilson ranks in EPA per dropback?
Oh, not pressured?
Not pressured.
8th?
4th.
Ooh.
Patrick Mahomes, Tua, Jimmy Garoppolo, Zach Wilson. Jalen Hurts.
Oh my God. Tua, Jimmy G, and Wilson are all in the same bunch there. That's actually kind of funny.
So here, he's gotten worse under pressure than he was last year. We've joked about this before. He has a 6 passer rating when pressure this year. 6. It's not a typo. You can see this 2 ways, in my opinion. Those issues he has under pressure and his inability to play with feel and operate as things get condensed, as things flash around him, which we were worried about coming into the league. Because BYU, he never had to do it. Nope. There was a stone wall in front of him at all times. He had Brady Christensen was an NFL offensive lineman. They were so much better than the people that they played against.
Yeah.
We never had to be concerned about it. So maybe he just can't operate when that's happening. Maybe it short circuits him, and this is going to be something that follows him forever, and it can't be fixed. Or you take the opposite view, which I think is tempting.
Yeah.
Historically, play under pressure is volatile and unstable. It kind of bounces all around the place. What you do under clean circumstances is much more stable and predictive.
Right.
And he's been really good in those situations. So when they get better up front, you think about all the offensive line injuries they've endured, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Dwayne Brown, Cedric Abui is their right tackle right now.
I know.
Like that's where we're at. Nate Herbig. I mean, that's where we're at right now. They lost Becton, Fan, Max Mitchell, AVT. They've built the rest of this thing up. There's no pass catcher excuses. It's not like watching Tua last year or watching Justin Fields now. They have guys that can make plays. They have playmakers. They have receiving options. But if the line gets better and if he gets better protection, can he kind of channel those areas where he's been really good? That becomes like the crucial Zach Wilson question. And I don't know what the answer is because it's impossible to know without better play up front because it's been bad. The last couple of years, it has been bad.
Yes. Outright bad. Horrible. And,
yes.
and that is the optimist, the glass half full side is he got hurt in camp. So he missed the beginning parts of the year. He hasn't played a lot of games. He's young. And these quarterbacks are coming into the league younger and younger. And that's what they're declaring earlier. You know, we got a lot more redshirt sophomores declaring and true juniors and all that. So I do think it's like he just needs the reps. It's just that you want to see more. I'm saying the flashes of those good plays with the creation plays. It's just the flashes from the pocket when it was clean. It's just that you don't always see. And like, that's the thing is if I'm going to be, held on to every ounce of my stock or not ounce, every paper of shred of Justin Fields stock and every shred of Trevor Lawrence stock. And I made excuses for them and how they're not getting help. I do think Zach Wilson has had the best situation as far as pass catchers, and the offensive line has been up and down as far as pass protection. You know, I think they're pretty good in the run game. I think LaFleur does a great job in the red zone. He's one of the most creative red zone designers because they do all those gadget plays. But having said that, he does have to show the growth of when it is clean. And that's why it's so hard when guys are just taking those lumps. The Justin Fields discussion we've had multiple times. They're taking the lumps and all the stuff. They're trying to do the right things. It's just that when it has been clean, I just haven't seen those glimpses of him being confident with it, unless it's 1, 2, 3, ball out. It's like, again, when the play is longer, if he has to take a 7-step drop, 5 out of the gun, it's like I'm holding my breath. If he has to turn his back to the defense, I'm holding my breath. But if he just gets to keep things clean and keep it tight and under that 2.5 seconds or less, it's like, okay, I could see the glimpses there. But in the NFL, you got to do more. You know, as an NFL quarterback, you have to do more.
As what I was saying about not wanting him to be in creation mode anymore. This is the last stat I'm going to throw out. Time to throw of 3 seconds or longer in the NFL this season. He's completing 25% of his passes, which is dead last in the league. He has a passer rating of 33, which is dead last in the league. His EPA per dropback is negative 0.5, which is dead last in the league. Mahomes is at positive 0.42. So when they hold onto the ball for more than 3 seconds, there's a 1-point swing between Zach Wilson and Patrick Mahomes this year.
Jeez,
crazy.
See, and that's great. And it's always fun when, I know it's not fun for Jets fans ears, but it's fun for us when an eye test thing shows up in the stats because that's exactly what it feels like. It feels like every time that happens, it's like the Jets are losing half a point when he's getting into that creation mode.
So we've seen some glimpses from Zach Wilson. Like there's been some progress in clean pockets. I think there are elements where it's like, all right, I can start talking myself into this. There's been no progress by Mac Jones this year. He is dead last in the NFL in EPA per dropback this season after looking pretty good at times last year. Like by the end of his rookie year, we thought he was the most promising, or in the moment now, he was the best rookie quarterback. Where his ceiling was, that was always up for debate.
Yeah.
But he was the best rookie quarterback in terms of production last season.
By far.
And he has been the worst quarterback in the NFL this year statistically.
It's insane.
What do we make of this?
And dude, and I've been trying to answer this. I've talked to several people about this now. I know mentally Mac Jones gets it. I know Mac Jones can get hot, and he's an extremely accurate passer. That's what I loved about him. I compared him to Chad Pennington coming into the league, whereas I just thought he was supremely accurate. But you can see where we talk about room for error with these quarterbacks. This is where athleticism and arm strength come in, and size, is that he doesn't have much. And so right now, when he's not playing with confidence and able to rip those throws on time and lead guys away from defenders and anticipate things, it looks bad and he has no creation ability. He's a better scrambler. We've said this before. He's a better scrambler. He gets credit for, but he doesn't do the extended plays, getting out of the pocket and turning into a sprint out. He doesn't do that.
Watching him and Josh Allen play is like watching different sports.
Oh, completely. And that's the thing. But they are who we thought they were. And that's what him coming in the league. That's why I was everyone's like, oh, this is who Kyle Shanahan wanted. I was like, really? Kind of already has this, guys. Like, why would he want more? Why would he want a Zoomer version of the millennial version that he's got? So I just think with Mac is those are the issues that he's going to always have, is that he has to be on time every single time. And right now he's doing it 1 out of 4 times. And this offense that they're running, and we talk about Patricia and Judge in a sec, but this offense that they're running is very at you. It's a vertical run game, very at you. I actually kind of like the run game. It's just a blunt force instrument. That's what they do in the run game. But then the passing attack off of it is also vertical. Mac Jones is not a vertical quarterback. That's not how he is built to win, I don't think. And you could see it was funny. It was like all of a sudden Bailey Zappe's throwing these same balls that Mac Jones is throwing, but all of a sudden it's like we talked about the coin flips. Bailey Zappi hit every coin flip. Mac Jones isn't hitting those, but that's why it's tough, because everything has to be perfect with him and the situation has to be good. But so that's where I'm at with him, is that now it's not good. He's not playing with confidence. They're messing with him and like how they're playing with Zappi.
He does not look comfortable.
He looks very uncomfortable. Everything.
And
every
he
snap
needs to be comfortable. If he's not comfortable, what is he? Because everything has to be on time. Everything has to be clicking for him to be able to operate an offense in the NFL at a high level. And if it's not going to be, what are you? Where are you going? And that's why I just think that we knew this coming in, and the results have been exactly what we expected. What they did with the offensive play caller stuff is malpractice.
Yeah.
Like, I know it was always going to be difficult to replace somebody like Josh McDaniels, who I know he's not doing well in Vegas, but he did a really fucking good job in New England for a really long time.
Cam Newton to Mac Jones and changing the offenses on the fly. Yeah, he did a great job.
And Mac played with so much confidence and so much comfort last year. He trusted what he was seeing all the time, and he doesn't anymore. And that is clearly just an articulation and a teaching of the offense sort of thing. You can feel that. You can think about how different Tua looks this year, now that he has one voice articulating the offense to him. Right. And it's not this disjointed thing of, well, I got 3 offensive line coaches and 2 offensive coordinators, and we are doing this.
2 offensive coordinators at the same time.
And that's what he has now. He has 2 offensive coordinators. Mac has 2 offensive coordinators at the same time. And it's just like, it is so telling when you have an actual plan for your young quarterback and how to get the most out of him and when you don't. And now it becomes, all right, what are you going to do? You're going to roll with this again next year? Right. Or are you going to find like a real person to come in and be like, all right, we're going to do this, instead of saying, well, these guys kind of know, they've been around. Like it's a huge misstep to me.
And now it just is in the same team. Like, oh yeah, they've been around the league, even though it's all New England. Like that's, but compare what they're doing right now with them and what Luke Getsy's doing with Fields, and talk about playing to the quarterback's strengths. I don't know if people know this, but the quarterback gets the ball every freaking snap. So wouldn't you want to play to their strengths, because they're gonna have an effect on every single play, and they don't. They play like they have Fields almost, because of how they attack vertically, and they're running 989 with Mac Jones. Mac Jones, I just talked about, that's a better player than you play. Mac Jones isn't hitting hole shots.
Also, the Patriots receivers aren't better than you.
No, I do like Jacoby Myers. He's a good player.
He's a nice player. Jacoby Myers is a nice NFL player. That's what I'm willing to do. Yes. Jacoby Myers, nice player. Jacoby Myers isn't dunking on dudes like Jamar Chase.
No, he's a nice player. But no, that's exactly right. And it's malpractice. And I think you hit it on the head. It is malpractice. And I'm disappointed, because like week 1 against the Dolphins, you're watching Mac Jones, and I had a tweet go viral about it. Pat myself on the back here, and where I said he got sawed off like a magician's assistant, because he's in the play. He is He's getting everyone lined. Everybody, running back, tight end. He's
That
moving
stuff is good. The
Yes.
operation stuff is very impressive.
They put everything on his plate, but no one's help a brother out. Like, help this dude out. Like, and no one's doing it, coaches or the players. And it's tough. It's tough to watch because, man, comparing him to last year, we had so much confidence. He's getting into verbal fights with Josh McDaniels, and Josh McDaniels is laughing because he loves it so much. Like, night and day to what's going on right now. It's disappointing.
All right, we are going to tweet out our picks because Nate had like 2 weeks worth of takes saved up, so we're running a little bit long here. But we're going to get to win my fourth screen, and then we're going to get out of here.
Awesome.
It is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
All right, this is from Christoph Boer. By the way, you guys did awesome this week. I sincerely appreciate the effort. So many good ones. I'm not even joking. I was reading these today, and I was like, I can't believe this is my job. It's so stupid. The fact that they pay us to do this is unbelievable.
This has been the most rewarding segment. I'm so glad we do this now. I love this every week. I just sit here and read it. It's so much fun.
All right. Christoph Boer says, allow me to take you on a journey, one which will detail the incredible matchups to be witnessed between two NFC powerhouses. Jalen Ramsey versus Michael Thomas, Cooper Kupp versus Marshawn Lattimore, Alvin Kamara versus Aaron Donald, the elite defensive mind of Dennis Allen versus the offensive wizard known as Sean McVay. It's beautiful. An exciting game of football, one that will spark conversations for years to come. This happened 3 years ago in the 2019 NFC Championship game. But don't tell Mickey Loomis or Les Snead that. These two general managers are the kings of tactically nuking their future in a desperate hope to win in the present, as if somebody forgot to tell them that, yes, in fact, time does move forward no matter how hard you try to stop it. Allow me to walk you through their masterpieces. The Rams have not picked in the first round since 2016, and they will not be doing so again until at the earliest 2024. Although Les has tried his hardest to make sure they're doing that. They're not doing that either. Wouldn't Brian Burns be nicer to have instead? Similarly, the Saints traded seemingly their entire future, including what is currently projected to be the 4th overall pick, to select Chris Olave, an honestly fantastic receiver who is unfortunately burdened with catching passes from the hollowed remains of 35-year-old Andy Dalton. Every year, the Saints are faced with the Sisyphusian task of bending the laws of salary cap mathematics so they can afford to have Jameis Winston ride the bench while they watch high-quality homegrown talents like Marcus Wilson and Teron Armstead leave for higher paychecks and greener pastures. Where does this leave us today? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because with Cooper Kupp, Michael Thomas, and Marshawn Lattimore all injured this week and for the foreseeable future, get ready for the exciting matchups of Ernest Jones versus Juwan Johnson, Ben Skoranek versus Alante Taylor, and Troy Hill versus Kevin White. Yes, that Kevin White. And Caden Ellis versus a combination of Darrell Henderson, Kyron Williams, and the ghost of Cam Akers. Let these teams serve as a fantastic reminder that someday we are all going to die. And in true Les Snead and Mickey Loomis fashion, it would just be more fun if we spent 3 hours of our short lives watching the 3-6 Rams take on the 3-7 Saints, rather than being responsible and worrying about what the future holds for us.
Oh, man.
Christoph, thank you very much.
Bravo.
You absolutely crushed it. And guess what, buddy? You absolutely crushed it. It was great to have you back. I'm so glad that you're back. I'm so glad that you and the family are doing well and everybody is healthy. We will not be doing a Thursday night recap because you do still have to feed a baby every once in a while. So we will get back to doing those after Thanksgiving. We'll update you on the Thanksgiving schedule on Twitter and then early next week after we do the Sunday night show. But we'll have a little bit of a tweak, but not a ton. We'll still have a lot of podcasts coming to you guys next week. So if you haven't, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can do that here. You can do that if you were listening in the description of the podcast. There should be a link. Please leave a rating or review of the show on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you listen. It really does help us. So if you've liked it this year, let us know. Subscribe to The Athletic. TheAthletic.com/football show is where you can do that. We will be back on Sunday night. Until then, please listen to the Football GM with Mike Sando and Randy Mueller. Go listen to Prospects to Pros with Dane and Andy. Really appreciate you guys listening. We'll talk to you soon.